This is something I've wanted to address for a long time now. So I'm doing a blog instead of a vlog. No, a vlog instead of a blog, changing things up. Here goes. So I get asked all the time, why do you defend the Hasidic community? Or people ask me, if you defend Hasidim, why did you leave? Or, so you regret leaving. Here's the thing. I don't agree with the whole premise that what I do is defend the Hasidic community. What I try to do actually is criticize my own secular world or understand my own secular world by analyzing and contrasting these two cultures. So let me explain the Hasidic way with a parable. Let's say you have a computer that's very slow. It's like bad. It takes so long to load Twitter that by the time you get to hashtag be outraged about the indignity of the moment, you're not able to go viral. It's very bad. So in this scenario, you go to the shop, they say there's no problem. Everything looks good. You insist nothing. So one way that you might be able to show that there is a problem, that you might be able to illustrate what you feel is not right, would be by comparing your computer's speed to another speed. So you illustrate your point by using a contrast, right? So in the Hasidic tradition, the takeaway is, for me, I will often tease out an understanding about my new world, which is in many ways surprising. I will understand it better by comparing it to a different world. So I learn about education, technology. My son's schooling is so different. All of our engagements, our children are raised differently by looking at the Hasidic community. What drives me in all my work, and you'll see it run through everything I do, is a desire to learn from the Hasidic community so as to better bring something useful away to the Western world. And there are so many things to learn. We're just not using the opportunity because Hasidim aren't teaching us. They're too sheltered, they're too into themselves, self-involved and infighting. And those who left are not really on the whole, are just telling the world what they want to hear. So it's not even done. But this is a very valuable learning opportunity. And what we learn affects us. It affects me. For instance, I'll give you an example. There was a measles outbreak last year in 2019 in the Hasidic community, and a lot of people were upset about it, right? People were upset about vaccines or were upset about contagious Jews. I was upset about the media. I wasn't upset at the Hasidim. I was upset at our media because by looking at the Hasidim and looking at the media, I was able to understand that this was a case of disinformation. It was out of context, that the media was not covering it correctly, and that this was creating anti-Semitism, and it was creating animosity, things that were just, it was the contrast to what I would expect of my world. I became a keyboard warrior in 2019. I left a lot of comments all over. If my comments happen to coincide with some Hasidic schmuck's interests, it's not because we're coming from the same place. I criticize the Hasidic community the secular community, sorry. The Hasidim is not my problem. The reason I'm not upset about them is because I never had high expectations. My mother would always say, Friday is kalt. I'm cold, I'm lukewarm, I'm not so into the religion. It didn't click with me, this way of this harsh religion, but the secular liberalism, it clicked, it dazzled me. The education, the questioning authority, the breaking down prejudices, standing up to authority, it made sense. It was utopian to me, and it's still utopian. The only issue is it was oftentimes I don't get this here. So it's more, sometimes it turns out to be more empty words than actual reality. So when the Hasidim do something that is an appeal to authority because the Rebbe said, but when our authorities do it and they say, do it because scientists said, then I'm, no, this affects me because it's my world. It is my values. It's my society. And it's not just theoretical values. My values affect my well-being. I feel bad in a world of cynicism and in which there's repression and prejudice. I like the utopia, but it's not, yes, the idea of the utopia matters, but also when things go down, it has real life implications. It's not just the idea. Like with the measles, right? It was not simply that I saw a flaw in our media and I was disappointed in our free press. I saw anti-Semitism. I saw things that were concerning. And all of those things I saw on a much greater scale in 2020. Never would I have been able to imagine that we'd ever go through the looking glass the way we did this year. We responded to the pandemic by completely shutting down dialogue. It followed textbook of all the red flags that I left behind. We curtailed freedom, we appealed to authority, we bullied, we shamed, we guilt-tripped, we ostracized, we used easy one-liners to dismiss others. And look what happens from these ideas. The actual effects are the closure of houses of worship, of schools, of the economic life, of the social life, of emotional well-being, loneliness. These things, these values that I believe in have real life implications. So, when you look back in history, you see a similar dynamic. In the 1900s, there was so much intellectual life and so much change going on among the Jews, and they invested so much energy in new ideas: socialism, Zionism, education, feminism, Westernization, and these idealistic young people devoted a lot of criticism to, dull, out of touch, stagnant traditional Judaism. And their criticism was correct. But when you go back and you read their snarky comments with a long view of history, it seems Kleingeld, small potatoes compared to what happened next from the Western world. It's harder to get angry about those because we can see that it's important to keep our eyes open to our own flaws, or things can go wrong from other directions as well. And why do we want to criticize Hasidim so much? Why are we so eager to point out ways in which they're wrong? Most people who criticize them are not even affected by them. See, is it because of that dark side in us? Is it a red flag that is, again, the very contra of breaking down liberalism and is, again, dogmatism? It's an interesting time for me personally. I've not been able to work for 7 months. My business, which I am so proud of, and I put in a lot of work, I don't know if it's going to come back. My son hasn't had school for 7 months, and he's an only child. He will be going to school one day out of every 3, and there he will attend class on Zoom, yes. But my own problems are like minuscule compared to the terrible abuses and loneliness and economic devastation we've seen during this response, and most of it has been ignored. And this is the direct outcome to something I talk about all the time, that if we don't keep an open mind, if we don't stick to the values of liberalism, if we don't self-criticize, we on the outside, if we don't understand ourselves by looking out of ourselves and being open-minded about other cultures and what works there, then it gets scary. It gets scary. I'm sometimes seriously scared. What is the world gonna be able to do next if there is no dialogue, if there's so much animosity for those who don't do the right or believe the right thing? So when I say, for instance, that Hasidim have done well with a pandemic, that they should be left alone, I'm not worried about them. They're not worried about me. They're not looking out for me. I'm not looking out for them. They're frustrating me by being pretty, I don't get any sympathy or support from the Hasidim. But I point to them as a way to illustrate something that we can learn. If they are okay without masks and social distancing, that's a lesson for us. And if we are open-minded, we learn it. That's really where I come from when I defend the Hasidic community. So that's my TED Talk. Thanks for coming. I have a Patreon, which I don't know how to plug, so I'm not going to. But behave yourselves, yes?